to meet you. Actually, I was a little bit familiar with you already.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
Hello, everybody. This is Peter Palmiotti of Even Art Studio, and this is Making Comics and Art, episode 105. And today we have guest on, Timothy Fling. Hello, hello. I'm just going to go into it a little about what's been going on, but I'll go into it much more next episode, probably Wednesday or Thursday. I'll do a solo episode, and then I'll have more guests coming. But so as most people know, I have two new cats, or I did. One's a kitten. The other one is probably a year old, and that was Molly. Molly came back after being away for a month. And I only initially had her for 3 days. And I was going to take them both to be fixed. But as it turns out, Molly was pregnant. So I got the little one, which is a panda bear. I got her fixed and even chipped. So I won't lose her, hopefully, fingers crossed. But yeah, Molly, it was 2 nights ago, went into labor like 2:30, 3 o'clock a.m. Called in my friend Lisa, who had experience with a pregnant cat, and she was looked like she was going to give birth, but then she put it on hold, which was good because I don't really want to deal with that. And as it turns out, the short story is we found a new home for her. Somebody else on my block, the end of the block, has a bunch of cats and apparently also has a farm. So she took her in, is going to, oversee the birth and all that, and then bring her out to the farm once the kittens are of a certain age. So that thankfully is all handled. And I am so happy because my sleep pattern has definitely gone off the rails. So that's the short of it. I'll get more into it at a later date. But here we have in the chat, Marv Studio. Hey. And he says, I got my dog Flash, and that's enough. Yes. Yeah, cats are crazy. So yeah, with me today is Timothy, and he has his book, Water Worlds. What is it, 2288? I want to get that right.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, okay.
Water Wars 2288.
Yes, and this is book 2.
Yeah, book 2 is the current Kickstarter. We have one came out. Actually, the first issue we did without a Kickstarter, that was released at the Baltimore Comic-Con 2019. And then with coronavirus, we sort of skipped a year. There was no convention to release it to. So the second one, we came right to Kickstarter. And number 3 is on the burner right behind it. It's almost done.
Yeah, that's incredible. I saw some artwork for that. So you're you're running along. So tell people about. It's sort of a unique thing. It's like, are all the issues, like you gave me the first issue to read, to check out.
Right.
It's like an anthology almost.
Correct.
Like format. So yeah, tell people like what the experience would be for them.
Well, thanks for asking. Yeah, it's Water Wars 2288 is a post-apocalyptic science fiction series, and they're based on short stories. And you can read each issue independently, and you don't need to know anything about the other books to enjoy it. It's just a story, right? But if you like that kind of thing, they are all connected, meaning the characters all inhabit the same timeline and the same environment. So in its broadest sense, number 2 is actually a prequel to number 1. Like it's that same character, but it shows her beginnings basically, and how she got basically a little bit of details, how she got the mechanical arm, how she got her drone, where the gas mask came from. kind of sets the character up. And then in number 3, it's essentially 3 stories and 3 main characters. So if you like the part where characters are connected and there's like a lot of lore that goes with it, you'd probably really enjoy it. And it is presented in an anthology format. I am the writer, but essentially every arc has a different artist. And I hope you don't think I'm exaggerating. The artists have been terrific on this series. I just got lucky every time.
Yeah, the issue you gave me in, I didn't recognize most of the names. This is my first experience meeting up with you, but I recognize the inker's name.
Juan.
We have crossed paths somewhere, and I'm a fan of his work. So
yeah, he's great. He's a heck of a good guy, and that was. Working with a penciler, right? That was something that was a little bit new to me. I had worked with a couple people who had inked their own work, and it really adds a dimension, doesn't it, when you have an inker that is separately inking the original pencils?
Yeah, I mean, when you get a penciler and an inker who are both good, really gelling together, you can get magic, definitely.
Yeah, totally agree. So, yeah, it was a pleasure working with Juan, and he's done a lot of stuff lately. He's been working for DC, and he's got another new book out, and the name of it slips my mind right now, but he's got a lot of work.
Right. Do you want to, we could just show the campaign if you want to go to the link.
Yeah, that'd be great.
There's a share button right below in the StreamYard green room.
Gotcha.
So let me click on this, and we'll set that up. So today's like kind of a holiday too. Yesterday was the 4th. So it might not be a lot of people showing up today, but a lot of people watch it afterwards.
Yeah, that's okay. The magic of YouTube is great for me,
Yeah.
And like I say, this is all new for me. This is only the second time I've ever done this. I definitely want to try and get on, more of these shows. This is a good one. I actually knew about it a little bit, but just to try and reach out and meet the people,
Yeah, there's more and more independent people doing their own comics, as well as having their own shows on YouTube. I mean, the pandemic, if anything, is exploded this kind of thing across YouTube, which is amazing.
Yeah. It's funny. So many of the comic creators are just thriving on these YouTube channels.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's great. It's like a whole new little community that's been expanding. And just when I think I know everybody who's like doing it, it's like 6 more people pop up. So
right. Well, it's funny you say that. My son does a YouTube channel, and he's actually a pretty talented fella himself. He's 13. And I always joke with him that the world cannot adapt to one more video game channel.
Right.
And here he does it, and man, it's another successful one. So I guess there is no full level for video game channels, apparently.
No. Yeah, that's a real hot thing. I used to be more of a gamer when I was younger. I don't have time for it now.
Yeah. That's one thing we do. We're still gamers, but so much of my time is occupied now by. I'm really making a go of trying to be a writer here, and I'm gonna see if I can make this work.
All right.
So I'm gonna do a share here with you. Do we want to do a screen share or a video file?
Yeah. If you hit share, then it actually pops up as another thing, and I can put it on screen. So once I see it.
All right, hold on just a second. I think I can put this right over here. Because
I would do it myself, but my internet sucks. And
I think I gotcha. Let's see if I am dual screening it, so this should work. Let's try this. Okay, there you go. Can you see that?
Okay. So it should come up. There we go.
All right, looks great. So this is, you want me to do a little pitch about it? Okay.
Yep,
so this
absolutely.
is our second Kickstarter. It is the second volume of Water Wars 2288. This is our science fiction series we've been working on for about 2 years. This book you're seeing here in front of you, this was about 2 years in the production. Very satisfied with the way it came out. And this is a great example of, working with a penciler who really had an initial vision and he saw it the whole way through. Working with an inker who really brought the pages to life. This is Juan Castro that we were chatting about. And of course, the colors, we got some colorists that just really, really brought the fire. So the whole project took just about 2 years. And it is a prequel to the first issue of the Water Wars, and it gives the backstory of the characters. A little bit of an oversized issue. This is going to be about 35 or 36 story pages. And we've got about, we just unlocked some bonus content with the Kickstarter. We got about 8 to 10 pages of bonus content. This is going to be a little bit of the timeline. It's going to show the history of the Water Wars. The back of the book's going to read a little bit like an encyclopedia. And it's that's the digital art by Erwin Arosa. And it came out amazing. Can't wait to show everybody this book.
Right.
So it's going to be oversized. I think it's going to be what's that? It's going to be 44 or 48 pages, something like that, when it's all wrapped up.
Very cool. Yeah. So obviously, it says right there you got 10 days left. So if you're watching this and you're interested, go check out the link, and you can see everything we're going to show. You can scroll down and everything. Gotcha. But we get 54 pledgers already.
Yeah, we're off to a pretty good start. Like I say, I can't say start anymore. We're in the last third. But this is our second Kickstarter. The first one is for our Hunchback book. And that one did about $2,100, I think, with 60 some backers. That was my first time. Pretty excited about that. And this one, we broke the record and we got 10 days left. So I'm kind of hoping to be, geez, what do you think? 3,000, maybe 4,000, right? Which is going to be which would be great for me. Like before this, the best I had ever done was at the Baltimore Comic-Con. And that's just, you know how that goes. You're just selling books at the booth and kind of hoping for the best. So I'm enjoying having the Kickstarter to meet new fans.
Oh, yeah. I'm just curious. How did you promote your first Kickstarter?
The first one was, that was my first foray into Kickstarter at all. And I was kind of winging it, right? Like I didn't have a mailing list. I've got maybe some fans. I write another comic book called Socket. It's a robot super team, and I have a page for that. So I was advertising to my page.
Right.
Other than that, it was pretty much organic. I haven't had, I'm not a guy that's got 10,000 followers or anything like that, Now, I've written a couple of comics, though, so people are starting to know me a little, I guess.
Right.
But I would say that the thing that we're going for, and I hope this is the message that's coming out, when you see these books, our goal is the production quality of the book is a world-class production quality. When you open it up, you're not going to say, oh, hey, it's an indie comic. Like it looks like an Image comic or, any of the big titles. And, we got a professional book builder and our letterer, Matthias Zanetti. I was telling you about him. He makes sure everything looks like $1 million. The last book, The Hunchback, I'll just show you on the screen here real quick. That gives you an idea of the kind of, it looks like a sci-fi book, of course. But that was the one that had a pretty successful Kickstarter. We had people doing commissions and buying the custom tiers and that kind of thing. And that was also how I got my eyes opened a little bit toward offering variant covers for the book. That's something that, as you know, is pretty popular on Kickstarter. And before it kind of wasn't really my thing. Like I said to myself, well, I'm not doing that. That's, as a writer, you look at a variant cover and you go, well, why would I want to do that? But of course, from the sales and marketing aspect, it's almost stupid not to do the variant cover.
Right.
So in this time around, we actually got a couple more. I'll show a couple of them on screen here. I'll come right to that. So the first one is the one you see there. It is a wrap cover. That's the front and back are all one continuous image. That's the one by David Dion. The next one underneath here. Yeah, it's pretty cool, right? And then we got Erwin Arosa. He's a digital guy, and he gives us that kind of the hand painted look. He's the other fella I make books with. He's on our other team. There's another. I'll talk about that before the end, but we got another book coming out too, right after this one.
Oh, cool.
This is a new guy I met, and I apologize. I'm probably going to butcher his name, but his name is Fakhrul Reza Rivai, and this is what we call the resurrection variant. Some people call it the Pieta because it has that kind of a look, and it shows.
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, it's pretty different, right?
Yeah.
And then there was a fourth cover. That's by Mr. Renan Shoddy, who's got he's another Brazilian super artist, and he's just got this great technique, man, with the shading and the grays, and it's a very movie posterish kind of feel, And he and I are doing a book together. He's the Water Wars 3 guy, which that's got 2 additional short stories in it. The same characters that we already know. Basically, each issue when you pick it up, they're the same characters. You're going to know who they are in the story, but they don't necessarily have to be a continuation or anything like that. All the stories are standalones.
Right.
Because I was never 100% certain. Well, I guess that's true of anybody that's writing, hey, is this thing going to keep going? You know what I mean? So, you start with one and, you want to make one kind of interesting story, right? And then if people kind of respond to that story, it's like, well, hey, what happened before that? What happens after? And you start fleshing out the whole world. We also this is something that we learned from the Hunchback book. We got a tier there where this is 4 variant covers, which for me, that's a lot. I think it was 3 last time. But, for $40, you get all 4 covers. And, that's something that there does seem to be some people that collect the sets.
Yeah, definitely. Individuals as well as like stores are interested in that kind of stuff too,
Yeah. And this next one I'm showing you there, the emblems of the Federation. We started offering last time. It's a custom enamel pin that's designed just for the campaign, and we did this again this time. And it's there's sort of a retro futuristic look on the pins, and that's by my good friend Matthew Moss. He's a designer living in Japan, and he always contributes something to each one of these projects that we do. He's a heck of a designer. And I chose pins. I'm going to be happy to talk to you about these Kickstarters. You see some of them and you get things like, well, comes with T-shirts and hats and, beer cozies and like all this, extended equipment that really has very little to do with the book. And by the way, I love some of these collectibles and, cool things. But as I was making this one, we were designing a hat, and this probably is still going to come out at some point, but it was like a military marching hat. It was a Chinese infantry hat, if you know what that looks like. And instead of having the star on the front, it had the Water Wars logo. Well, it looked really cool, man. And by the second or third day, you're going through proofs and designs for the hat, and you're working with the people about the embroidery and the stitching. And I kind of went, you know what, man? I don't want to be a hat maker. I'm a writer. So let's change gears here a little. and what we decided to do, instead of having stretch goals based on hats and shirts, it was additional content for the book. And I think that in most cases, that's what the end user really wants. They want the best product from Kickstarter. I think that hats and shirts would be good sellers. That might be better at a convention, I'm guessing. But I just didn't want to invest so much of my time into, the apparel. And I'll tell you where I'm going with this story, Peter, is that, you got the emblem, which is the pin, right? What I did, there you go. She mentioned she's got a friend who buys the covers of the books in that chat comment. I totally agree with that. And that, by the way, that's one of the reasons why we do it, is that sometimes, an artist brings along his own fan base and they will buy a book just because he's on that book. So that's
Right.
what we
Yeah,
try to
definitely.
do is we try to sniff out some of the, in my case, some of the up and coming indie guys, because they're a little bit more in my wheelhouse, you know. Like
Right. Yep.
I don't particularly have any big names or anything. But getting back to this pin, what I wanted to do, Peter, is just develop the things that I like. You know, I always like the pins, and I'm a little bit of a pin collector. And, you know, when I back people's campaigns, I almost always, if they have a pin, man, I'm a sucker for the pin. You know, I always buy it. So I said, hey, when I do mine, that's the kind of thing I'm going to do. So, you know, it does come with the pin, but this time around, there will be no hat. Maybe the next one I'll have maybe some hats for you guys.
Yeah.
I've done pretty well. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, like, it makes sense to roll out all these extras because you wanna sort of grow your company along the way. Because the book itself only makes you so much money,
Right.
and it's just smart business, and people get it. Like, if they want it, they'll get it. If they don't want it, that's fine. Like, they're at least supporting you for the book, so all is good.
Right, right. And I'm trying to make a bigger push toward digital also. You know, digital does very well on Kickstarter, and we tried to make things that were, for instance, in this case, there's additional artwork that you're going to get with your digital copy, and we wrote 4 original songs which are downloadable as MP3s.
Right.
So that's something that, you know, something you can get to your inbox without having to worry about the mailman.
So, uh, a friend of mine, Global Frequency, like, he has a lot of guests on, and it's 3 people, but they've been pushing people, like, to do both Kickstarter and Indiegogo, and I'm curious why you chose Kickstarter, and are you aware of the stuff going on in Indiegogo?
I am,
Like
and
this,
thanks for bringing that up.
yeah,
I have not done it yet, but my understanding is the way to optimize that, you know, you start with your Kickstarter, and you
right,
know, you get everything funded for the production costs of the book, and then your marketing, you go when the book funds, you move right over to Indiegogo, and it's like a second source. I
yep.
know they say don't do them both at the same time.
Well, it's like, we're all figuring this out as we go,
Right,
and
right.
I've seen those that have done that and done it successfully. Like,
It did okay.
maybe, yeah, like, maybe their Indiegogo does really well, but there's some people on the Kickstarter, so overall they brought in the money they needed, kind of thing.
Right, right.
But yeah, it's set up where if you do a successful Kickstarter, you can port the whole thing over to Indiegogo, supposedly,
Yeah,
like, as is, and do the similar campaign,
yeah,
or you could just go to Indiegogo as a in demand, and they can
right.
order it at their leisure.
Yeah, and I guess once you have your campaign designed, and like I say, I talk a little bit like I'm an expert, right? I've done this exactly one time before, but it does seem like once you have your campaign designed, you could very easily move it right over to Indiegogo and kind of rock and roll with it. The only thing that I would be concerned about there, and I don't know if this is true, is that if it somehow cannibalizes each other, like, are the same customers on Indiegogo that, you know what I'm
well,
saying?
well, it's kind of like Macy's or Kmart.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 2 different stores you go into, and some people go to one, some people go to both, some people go to only the other one.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
um, but hey, it's great seeing everybody in chat. Welcome, welcome.
Welcome.
So I know there's specific people that only go to Indiegogo. There's specific people that only go to Kickstarter. I happen to pledge to both, but mostly have done Kickstarter.
Yeah.
So it doesn't hurt to do both.
Yeah. And I think that's going to be on my radar because I'm starting to get a little bit of a back catalog of books, right? Like I write this one title called Socket. That's the one I started with. It's a robot super team. I got 3 issues of that. I got Water Wars, which is now going to be 3 issues of that. And the other series, the one that this Hunchback book is a part of, that's part of the Water Wars also. That one's called Water Wars Chronicles. And there's a 2nd issue of that coming out. That'll be next month. So that's 6, 7, 8 books, 8 or 9 books. That's before you count any kind of variants or anything.
Yeah. So you can start doing a collection soon.
Yeah. One of the things that we're going to try to do in the next one, if this works, because like I say, the stories are all connected, right? We're going to try and make a hardcover volume that collects all the stories in chronological order.
Right. So
that might be cool.
Yeah, no, definitely. You mentioned newsletter. Do you have a newsletter now to get people on board? And
I do. Well, when you say newsletter, I do. I use MailChimp, and I got a little bit of a user base that I developed from my last Kickstarter. It's very small. I recently went through one of these things where you can buy a mailing list. It was like an opt-in where you could advertise to a bunch of people, and if they responded, you would capture their names for your own email list. Well, I got something like 1,200 names, right? But the problem is you just can't blindly mail 1,200 people, or you're going to violate the terms of the mailing service.
Right.
So I've got to figure out a way to, Peter, everything with me is a work in progress. Like, I know I've got to do this, but how am I going to develop this mailing list? By the way, the mailing list, looking through the numbers, and I know it's very small, but it has the best conversion out of any of the customers, right? Like the people who are on my mailing list, they're something like 30% likely to buy something.
Right. No, that's great. It's something I have to do. I mean, you talk about work in progress. We're all works in progress. It's like, we're all learning as we go, and with the community, it helps because they'll tell you a couple of their secrets. You tell them a couple of yours.
Right.
And it's just it's a lot to do, a lot to take in, a lot to process.
Yeah, exactly.
But you do good work, and I know you're raving about the design on your Kickstarter pages, but it is beautiful. It's like I slapped mine. I did a quick 5-day Kickstarter just to get initial funding for my book Retro, and I just slapped it together. It's like,
right.
It wasn't so much about that. It was about joining that community that does crowdfunding. That's a step up for an indie creator nowadays, and it's important to the bigger picture. So the fact that you got a couple of one under your belt, this one's 10 days away from ending. You got multiple books going on.
Yeah.
You just keep hustling, and you'll be good.
Yeah. And Peter, I totally agree with what you said. The indie community, and just to rewind, remember, this was totally new to me. I didn't have any friends in the business or anybody like coaching me or mentoring me. And I thought, well, hey, I'm just going to jump in and I'm going to start making comics. It's at the time it was 2015, 2016. You don't need a publishing deal, so to speak, right? So, well, I'm just going to start making books. And then when I jumped into the Kickstarter water, the thing I noticed, the indie community is very thriving and very supportive of each other. And I quickly became, I use the term friends loosely because I know there's Facebook friends and there's real friends. But in most cases, I've become pretty close to my coworkers and my teammates. And, we call each other up all the time over things that have nothing to do with books. And with Kickstarter in particular, if you get into a certain ring, you've probably noticed this, you get into a certain ring of creators and it's like they all kind of help you out.
Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah, so I've been very lucky in that regard. You know, I didn't come to the table with any kind of credentials or anything. I had never written a book before, never had done a Kickstarter before. I mean, I came in pretty much green, right? So, and that the first book, you know, this was pre-Kickstarter, but my plan now is I think I'm going to do a Kickstarter for every book, and I'll tell you why. What my goal is, and I'm not sure if this is the correct way to look at this, but I set the goals low toward what is the bare minimum I need to cover the production cost of the book, with the intent being that I want to be able to say, hey, I've done 3 or 4 small ones and they're all successfully funded, but I've got enough to make books, right? The challenge with, I think, you know, it seems at least like I'm starting to level up a little bit, you know, like I'm starting to get more followers and hitting some bigger numbers. But I don't want to set the goal high and then miss the goal. And then, you know, you got to drop back and regroup and do you launch again? That's like a whole other thing, right?
Yeah, definitely.
And
it's set up differently on Indiegogo, where you can, you know, sort of, no matter what money comes in, it's a successful campaign, and you just, you know, do it with just publish with what you got.
Right.
Which is slightly different than Kickstarter, but yeah.
That's something to take a look at. And I also want to, you know, the print on demand, like, you know, you have your Indie Planet or, you know, even Amazon, stuff like that. I haven't done too much with that. Just, I don't know if that's, I didn't want to relinquish control or exactly why I didn't do that. But, you know, I have my website too, and I sell the books through my website. So in my mind, I always wanted to have my website, my Kickstarters, and to rep them at cons. I didn't figure I would need any kind of print on demand service, but I guess it's probably stupid if I don't take a look at it.
Right. Are you just printing a number of books at a time, or?
Yeah, usually I do a couple hundred at a time, and then, you know, you just go as you need them, right? And I've generally done them with Kablam, who is that's Barry Gregory's company. They just got a beautiful book. The way they do their bindings, I really like the look of their printing service. And I also do quite a bit with Greco Comics Wellspring.
Right. Yeah.
And the thing I like about them, man, you turn in that proof on a Friday, man, you're gonna have books in your hand on Wednesday. They're lightning fast, those guys.
Cool. Yeah. You know, everybody has their preferences, and, you know, like certain people looking for something slightly different or whatever, so they go to a different printer. But those are popular ones, definitely.
Yeah. And I'm going to start to take a look at also. I haven't, you know, some of the things that have the chrome covers and the hologram covers and stuff like that. I think I'm ready to graduate to that. And
speaking of extras, well, I'm not so much the cover guy. Actually, you know, when it comes to what will eventually be my own publishing venture, I'm doing one cover for each book. I'm one of those guys that, you know, I refuse to do multiple covers, because I think you lose the iconicness of the comic cover.
Yeah.
So
listen,
I'll do other things, but yeah,
I totally get what you're saying. You know, I was so nervous to do I had to be talked into it, I'll tell you, because I am not a fan of the variant cover, and it's exactly for the reason you said. So much is made behind one iconic image that you don't want to give up the iconic part.
Yeah. But, you know, I realize it's a smart business decision, but I'll stick to my guns for as long as I can.
Well,
okay, so this was a Kickstarter extra, or maybe an Indiegogo, I forget actually now, but this is a little thumb drive.
Oh, yeah.
You know, let's see. Yeah, it's a little thumb drive, but it's like one of the characters that happens to be an alien. I don't know if you can see it's an alien, but
yeah, it's cool.
But I thought this was the coolest extra on a campaign that I ever saw. I was like, okay, I'll get that. You know?
Yeah.
It's like it comes in handy.
Sure, sure. You know, it's funny. You look at some of the add-ons for these things, and I noticed two things. First off, it ties to what you said about losing the iconic image of the brand. I think if you start to offer a lot of things, you can forget that this is a book that we're promoting.
Right. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I certainly don't have anything against a t-shirt or a hat or anything like that. But some of these things get, pretty surprising. There's like accessories for your car and, different types of clothes. It's like, wait a second, I'm definitely not getting involved in all that. Now, the thing with the variants, I'm kind of with you in that I resisted it initially. I understand you need a little bit more, more pizzazz to get more eyeballs on the project. But I will say that I'm not sure having the variants really help it in terms of sales, but I do think that it helps it in terms of the marketing, and you can be sharing a lot of different artwork.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, without a doubt, that it definitely helps with the marketing. Yeah. You got all these other names you can throw out there, and if they're good people behind, the cover, the people drawing the alternate covers, if they get involved in the promotion of your campaign, that's a plus.
Right.
It's a lot of good things that come of it. But I'm just hoping that like my name is big enough that people already recognize me somewhat.
Yeah. you got a little bit of a following already.
Yeah. I did my first Kickstarter and I've been a part of others. But you don't know until you do it on your own. And I didn't know what to expect. And I busted my ass for 5 days straight. But I got a respectable outturn. So yeah. I thought, it did well. And if I do a real 30-day campaign, then I should be golden.
Hey, what's your thoughts on, I see a lot of guys now switching back from the 30-day to a 20-day campaign.
Yeah. Well, I have a certain unique strategy in which I want to do Kickstarter as a quick campaign and then do a longer one on Indiegogo. So 5 days on Kickstarter, then 30 days, possibly 60 if it picks up major steam or something.
Right. Sure.
So 20-day campaign. I mean, it's all like you have to balance like the energy you put into it. 'Cause it, I'm sure you realize like it takes a lot of time out of your days while it's going.
Right. Right. Exactly.
To promote it and talk to people about it, both in comics as well as outside of comics, and just promote, marketing. And 20 days sounds like 30 days is a lot for people, and
right.
20 days sounds more reasonable. So
I noticed that some of the guys are now picking up that 20-day campaign, and again, I'm not. This is my second one, but I will tell you, I've noticed that there's definitely a lag time right in the middle of both of them.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're going to go through, there probably is 10 days where nothing happens. Well, maybe not nothing happens, but you see what I'm saying. And I'm wondering if you condense the whole thing into 20 days, would it be more like a burst and it would have more impact on the market maybe?
Yeah. I mean, the trick is, like a telethon, if like TV telethons, like that goes for what, a day, maybe a weekend, like Kickstarter at 30 days or Indiegogo, that's a lot. You have to pretty much plan like a 30-day calendar, and that's like, of course there's going to be a lull in there. So 20-day makes more sense, because the high points are the start of it and the end of it.
Right.
Unless you got some major event that people are clamoring for in the middle somewhere.
Yeah, and I've never understood how the there's a lot of companies that will sell you Kickstarter marketing, right? And I
Right.
haven't done that either of the two times. The word on the street seems to be it's really not worth it too much. This is from me asking around. First of all, do you have any thoughts on the marketing, Peter?
Well,
you know what I mean? It's like a Google. They sell you. There's a number of different companies that do it. The biggest one is probably BackerKit, and what they do is, I guess it's like a Google AdWords or probably like a pay-per-click or a remarketing, and basically it's going to increase the number of eyes that hit your project.
Oh, so are you? Is that specifically like advertising on Facebook and Instagram, or is that something on its own?
I know they do Facebook and Instagram and YouTube, and I think that they hit. And there's also like a press release, and they do little things too. My guess would be the meat of it probably comes from social media.
Yeah, because I mean, so my thoughts are like, advertising through Facebook is something I probably won't attempt in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Because I heard people's results of that is small to none, and then once you start there, then they just want you to continue.
Right.
And they're already annoying with little pop-ups and whatever, saying, hey, we'll give you $25 credit, $10 credit, blah, blah, blah.
I get those too, man.
All you have to do is spend $50 more.
Right.
Yeah. I don't think it's worth it. I don't think it's worth it. I heard it's better on Instagram, but I still don't think it's worth it.
That's funny. I can't get any traction on Instagram. We were talking about that. And I'm an Instagram user and everything, but if you look at, I'm sure you've heard this 10 times, but you look at the bikini girls who can get 158,000 likes, and you look at people making their own beautiful artwork, and you might get 20, or 30 likes. So I can't figure it out.
It's like anything. It's like growing anything. It takes time to really get your numbers up. I've seen people blow up, where they were getting like 15 likes, 20 likes, and now they're getting like in the hundreds. And that's probably not just growing on like Instagram. That's probably because they got other things going on elsewhere, and everything helps each other. I know a lot more people are blowing up on TikTok. Mm-hmm. And I haven't ventured there. Maybe I will.
Yeah, I was looking at that one too. You got to look where the eyeballs are, right?
Yeah. But it's like a lot of what I see, because a lot of people post their TikTok stuff onto Instagram, and it's like, whatever. But I'm not so much into watching clips of uselessness.
Right.
Which is what a lot of it comes out to be. I mean, I love Instagram because it used to be a freaking art gallery. Now it's a mixture of art gallery and videos. And, like there's some worth checking out. But if you're going to watch videos, then go somewhere where they're meatier, like on YouTube.
Yeah.
And there's other places. There's new sites popping up, and you gotta cultivate your time wisely and all that jazz. But it's like, I know of BackerKit, but I don't know like the full spectrum of all they do. I know like they're very good with the end of a campaign. I've seen a few campaigns that have used it that I pledged to, that it's just a better overall experience.
Yeah, like an organizational tool.
Yeah. Above and beyond that, I don't know too much about all the other stuff they got going on. But as far as Tyler Kirkland, is that his name, that does like a Kickstarter training school thing? I've heard
I know who you're talking. You're talking about Tyler Vogel, the comics lunch.
Yeah. I've heard he's very good. I mean, it's all different people's experience and perspective, but
yeah. Now, by the way, that I'd be more interested in, because I do know who you're talking about there, and it's a very comic centric type of thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
When I was talking about the other, it's digital advertising is what it is. And when I was looking into that, you talk to the companies that sell it, and guess what? They all say the same thing. This is the greatest product. You definitely need to buy it. Kickstarter is going to go through the roof. You're going to have to spend all day counting your money. All right, great. So you start looking into it. The pricing's attractive, right? It's not, as advertising goes, I felt it was very reasonable. But then you talk to the people that use the product, and there was nobody, at least in my ring, saying, wow, this is great. You've got to try it, Tim. They were all saying this was a waste of money. I didn't get anything from it. Basically, if you thought Facebook advertising was a waste of money, you're probably going to think that about these third-party Kickstarter advertising companies.
Yeah. I mean, my experience doing stuff online is, do it by trial and error. I don't care if I screw up 100 times.
Right.
So that's how I feel about learning crowdfunding. It's like, it's like I might not be the most professional or slickest or whatever, hopefully you just know that I'm putting more of my work into the books.
Right.
And, a lot of my friends just, what they do is they like have a couple weeks where they sort of study crunch, and they look at campaigns, they follow campaigns.
Oh yeah.
And they like say, oh, I would do that. Oh, I wouldn't do that. I would, and just pick and choose what you do, and then try it yourself with your following and your book. Like different books will result in different things. Like, you do sci-fi, you have a certain audience. You do a horror, you have a different audience. You do fantasy, or you do real life. It's like you have to consider everything. Yeah.
Well, and you said something that was right on target, and here's what I thought you totally had. When you talk about how, actually it ties in too with what we said about the hats and the shirts. When you said about wanting to put the best quality into your book and making the best product you can, that is the end goal. See, we sometimes forget that, right? Like, we're making a Kickstarter, and I've gotten to be kind of friends with some of the guys that make Kickstarters. Okay. And here's the thing. Some of these guys are more known for being excellent Kickstarter makers than they are for being writers or artists. And I'll tell you what I mean by that. And I'm not going to single anybody out here, Peter, because it takes all kinds of products in this great market. And man, I love comics in all their forms. So please don't let this statement reflect that I'm on your channel bashing the way somebody's doing something. But when you talk about these Kickstarters, you see some of these guys hitting crazy big numbers, right? And then some of them are things along the lines of maybe naughty covers or bare-breasted. Anything like that, which, by the way, man, I totally love that stuff. I'm a red-blooded American male. I understand why it sells 5 times as many copies.
Yeah.
That said, I was very sure going in that I don't want to do that. At the end of my Kickstarters or any of these products, I want the end user, the client, to say, wow, that was a pretty good book. If he makes another one, I'm going to buy that one too. And the idea is, and I hope this is true in this material and in some of the stuff I sent you, if you liked one of the books, you got a darn good chance you're going to like our others, because they're all very similarly flavored. So, it's not like, boy, this one's really completely different. I can't believe it's terrible artwork and the story. They're all very constructed with the same care and at the same level. When you see some of these Kickstarters and they do I'm just going to pick a number. Well, they do $50,000 and they blah, blah, blah. And they got all these covers. I've noticed that nobody gets to the end of those and says, wow, this was a really good book. They talk about the Kickstarter, because that obviously is a big victory. And I hope it doesn't, it probably sounds like I'm being sour grapes. I didn't mention it. I didn't mean it like that because, hey, I'd love to hit 50 grand. Let's be honest, right? I'd love to hit 40 grand. But I also don't want to, I don't want to go down that road where I didn't mean to single Brian out. I meant another guy. By the way, the Brian Pulido books are actually pretty good. I didn't mean to infer.
He's been around long enough. Like if you don't believe in the quality of his books, then you're out of your mind.
Mm-hmm. And I was going to say he's kind of the exception to the rule, right? Because he's got the statues and the books and the posters and the prints. But the one thing you can say about all of them, they're exceptionally high quality.
Yeah.
So I would say he is that type. Brian is that type where if you bought one of his books, you would say, hey, that's pretty cool. I will go and check out the other one. But other than him, there are a few out there which are, I'll let you discover them on your own. You look through them and it's like, well, this doesn't look like a very good book. And here's a book that's got, multiple covers and naked people and it's selling for all the money. You know what I mean? They're bringing it in. But hey, maybe that's what I need to do is start putting my characters naked on the cover. I guess that's my shortcoming. I don't know.
Well, I mean, it's like I plan to have like nudity and more extreme violence, but it won't be too heavy until later issues. But because it's a mature book, but it's still like very much like something you would pick up from Marvel or DC. Sure. Just a little more, honest.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's like there's an audience for everything. But yes, sex sells, violence sells. I mean, my brother did Sex and Violence, a couple of volumes of that.
Yeah, yep, sure did.
For a reason.
And I'm okay with the I guess we should take a second in review here. So in the Water Wars 2288 series, you're talking about stories that have female protagonists. Okay, that's one of the hallmarks of the series is that the characters are women, the heroes are women. But there isn't any like, I guess I would say they are attractive women and they're even, kind of sexy on the covers, but it's not anything beyond that. You know what I mean? Their adventures more along the lines of like a Mad Max Fury Road or, any of the post-apocalyptic stories that you've encountered.
Right. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with pretty people.
Yeah, right. And it's worth saying you got to be a little sexy on some of the covers, but I'm not sure that. See, I don't really want to emphasize that too much because that's not what the interior of the book is.
Yeah.
And particularly in my case, it's I don't know if you experience this with your books you're making, but sometimes I look around and I see there are things people are making. And I go, wow, I'm not doing what these other guys are doing. What what am I doing wrong? Am I focusing on the wrong audience or what? But these are the post-apocalyptic short stories. Nobody particularly has any powers of any kind. They're just trying to survive. They're in these fantastic worlds. It's an adventure, but I wouldn't say it's a superhero story if you follow.
Yeah, no. I had a thought, and this is because of pandemic, because it seems like in the last I'm going to say 10 years there have been more and more post-apocalyptic stories, in movies and comics, novels, what have you. Post COVID or wherever we're at the moment.
Yeah.
Do you think that people still crave that kind of material? I know I do. I'm just curious.
I think they do. And, I will, before I answer that question, there's one thing I should probably address because it directly affected this book. The first book was about the shortage of the water, right? The second book deals with this mysterious pandemic that came out, E76, and this terrifying dystopian government. Well, I actually had to trim some of that out because it was less scary when it was actually really happening around us. You know what I mean? Like the thing of the people wearing masks and being told where they could go and to line up, all of a sudden that didn't seem so far-fetched. And so I took all that out of the book. It basically starts out now with her escaping from the government facility, because I was like, people aren't gonna, this isn't scary anymore. This is normal. We are wearing masks and we are lining up and the government is telling us what to do. So, you know, it just didn't have that punch that I needed anymore. So I took out, it is still about a pandemic, and that's what they're on the run from. But I took out most of the, I guess you would say, the buildup, because the buildup didn't really, I wanted it to seem fantastic and preposterous. It didn't seem very fantastic anymore.
Yeah, when
this is great. Great comment from Landon.
Strange and unreal. Yeah,
I think it's a double-edged.
I think it's a double-edged sword. You want to read it? You can read it. Okay.
I think it's a double-edged sword. If you do that kind of stuff to get sales views or likes, then you might get that, but you probably won't get people to say it was a great comic or a great story. That's exactly right, Landon. And see, that's what my concern is. If I was to start doing, you know, let's say more sexier covers or something like that, I'm afraid that as people go through the material, they're going to notice right away, well, hold on a second, that isn't the kind of material this guy's writing. You know what I mean? Like it wouldn't match. So, you know, and I certainly don't have anything against attractive women, or I certainly don't have anything against anybody with their clothes off. I'm all for it, in fact, but it's just probably not going to make its way into any of our series.
Yeah. I mean, you know, like they always say, what was I thinking of? Cover sells a book, but you know, I've seen a lot of covers that aren't what's in the book, and I always feel ripped off because I want what's inside the book to be represented on the cover, at least to some extent. You know, like a lot of covers are pinups sometimes, and that's cool. But you know, I like to see what's happening inside on the cover.
Yeah.
But yeah, definitely, like, you know, some just, I've seen some campaigns where it's like an average book of whatever, superheroes, science fiction, whatever. But then it's just blatantly sex on the cover, and it's like, meh.
Right. Yeah, and that's the kind of thing we're trying to avoid, right? And you know, one of the things I would say is the main thing that we're trying to get across with the Kickstarters is to build our audience and to set it up basically for, you know, if you like this book, you're probably going to like the other ones. Like it's a shared universe, so that as it grows, I'm going to be basically marketing to these people, right, Peter? It's like I'm trying to build this audience. And it took me a while to figure out, like people say, or they ask this question, they might say, well, who is your target audience, right? Who are you making this for? Because we all have a different target audience. And it took me years to be able to figure out who I was making these things for. And I realize now the person I am making them for is me. Like I'm trying to make something that I would really enjoy. And chances are, you know, and it seems like you're a little bit that way too. If you like the kind of things I like, you're probably going to like this book.
Yeah, absolutely.
And that's kind of the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah, and it almost sounds like a cop-out, but it's not, because I really want to make something of the high quality that I've known that other people produce. You know, it's like, and yeah, so if I love it, then it's worthy of my stamp. You know.
Yep. Yeah, I totally get that. And that's one of the things too, is I'm very particular about that kind of stuff too, right? Like we start to talk about, like, again, I'm on the beginning of my journey, but I can already recognize, oh, I got a brand here. People are responding to it. I got to make sure I don't go off brand.
Right.
And basically that's what, you know, go ahead.
I was just going to say, like, we haven't talked about, like, how you came into this, how, you know, like, did you grow up reading comics? Did you, you know, want to write comics from reading comics, or maybe from a different, maybe getting into novels when you were younger, or
Yeah, a
what's
little
your
bit of everything.
experience?
I was a
Yeah.
pretty heavy reader when I was a kid. I started reading at a very early age. And I guess when I was probably 10, 9 or 10, I discovered comic books for the first time. And I remember the thing that stuck with me the most, and this is true of DC and Marvel in those days, is that they had this shared universe, right? Like the characters knew each other and they would occasionally cross through each other's issues. And that's the
Right.
part that really stuck with me. And that's a little bit what I'm trying to create now. I had always wanted to be a writer. I had been done a little bit of poetry writing and some creative writing through college. And I've been a short story writer for a number of years. But, I could never get anybody interested in my writing, right? And some of that is I didn't know how to market it or how to get published. And this was in the pre-internet days as well, or at least in the pre-self-publishing days. So I thought, well, let me see what I can do. And in 2012, I had a comic book store. So I was pretty well versed with all the products and this kind of thing. I'd been wanting to write this story for the longest time. And at the time, I had a cousin who is a director it was Nickelodeon at the time. He director for animated series. And he says, hey, man, do you want to, write a script for me? We're going to do these pitches. And I used to write animated script pitches. And they were basically for short cartoons that would air on either Nickelodeon, Spike TV. You remember Spike TV?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. They weren't around too long, but they had a couple of short animated series. You get the idea, right? So I would send these pitches in, a couple times a year, and they would almost always come back rejected. But I got to meet some new people. And I guess this went on for about 2 years. And I started to say, you know what, man, I should develop this property myself. This was my first book, Socket. This is the robot book.
Right.
And I had met a fellow by the name of Martin Dunn. Do you know Martin Dunn by any chance?
No, Ben Dunn. I don't think I
know. No relation. Yeah. I know
no relation.
Martin is he's a musician now, but he was a comics publisher in 2015. And I met him. As a matter of fact, he was there the day that I met Jimmy. It was at Heroes Haven in Tampa. And we started talking about wanting to write our own comics. And the way I met Martin, I looked down and he had a tattoo on his forearm. It's of Miracle Man by Alan Moore. By any chance you're a Miracle Man fan? Yeah, I'm a huge fan, right? So right away, I'm instinctively obliged to like this guy. So we started getting along right away. And I gave him a little elevator pitch on this series I was making. And he's like, all right, let me think about it. Let me digest it. And I went home. I didn't think too much of it. I guess probably a couple of weeks went by. And he called me on the weekend and, hey, man, let's make a comic, Tim. And I paired up with him and he paired me up with an artist. And the company was called CAE, Con Artist Entertainment. And they were, at the time, they were printing, they made Joshua Black and a couple of other titles. But this was, Socket was the book. And we made one issue with them. And right about the time after making the first issue, this is no disparagement to those guys because he taught me how to make comics, basically. But I remember going, well, I really don't need a publisher, man. If you're doing this, this is the age of the self-publisher. So I did number 2 on my own. And then I did number 3 on my own. And right about the time of number 3, I started making Water Wars. And for whatever reason, this series has been getting a little traction. So most of my efforts have been focused on this title.
Nah, that's cool. I think like, I see the quality, not only on the campaign where, that's nice, but in the books themselves. The artwork and everything from cover to cover is totally professional. The art is, I really like the style. In the Water World Wars. I want to say worlds all the time. But it's good looking product.
Thanks.
Hey, let's see what Landon says. If you like what you're doing, chances are that you will translate to others. To me, it seems like your own feelings about what you do become part of the thing itself, like spiritual osmosis.
Yeah, I totally agree.
And
I totally agree.
Yeah,
that does make sense, man.
If that
As a
makes
matter of
any
fact,
sense. It does.
when you go on Kickstarter, they even say to you some words like, and I'm going to mess it up now, but they basically say when you're making your video, focus on the parts that you're excited about that will reveal your passion. And the idea is if you go in there, oh, and let me show you, this is so cool, then it's going to be this and this and this. You know, your excitement will transfer over to the customer, right, to the end client. And that's their thing, is if you really like it and if you're passionate about it, that is what makes it a cool thing. And especially for guys like me and you that have, you know, years worth of understanding comics and knowing which ones are cool and which ones are not cool, it kind of, you know, you kind of filter out everything that you don't like.
Yeah. I mean, just the fact that it's like I read thousands of comics and every one of them brings me joy and I'm entertained and all that. But I look at the great ones and say, that must be, you know, like impossible to do.
Right.
And,
yeah.
I look at the lesser quality ones and say, I could do better. I mean, you know, every one of them to some extent make me want to do the same, make me want to do my own books. So, you know, finally getting that chance because I got off my own ass and, you know.
right. Well, and we're lucky to live in a time where we can do this, you know, it's.
Yeah, no, definitely. What I want to say, you want to do a top down of your campaign,
Sure.
Maybe even refresh the page. I don't know if maybe you got an extra pledge. Fingers crossed.
I do. Yeah, I guess fingers crossed. Oh, we did. How about two, actually? Look, you're bringing me good luck, buddy.
Excellent.
So I'm going to give you a quick breakdown of what some of the things are. First of all, it's called Water Wars 2288. This is a post-apocalyptic science fiction series. And in almost every case, they feature female protagonists. Like I was saying earlier, there's nobody that has any superpowers or anything like that. They're just trying to stay alive. But one of the hallmarks of this book, it's a little bit more of a fantastical world. Here's what I mean by that. It's less grim and gritty like the first book. And this one's a little bit more, it's got the Minotaur. We've got some giant bugs. We've got all kinds of outlandish cyborgs and things like that. It seems a little bit more maybe lighthearted, I guess would be a good way to put it. For $5, we got the digital copy. That's the Song of the Void. The great thing about doing the Song of the Void, if you only want to do the $5 level, it does come with all the digital add-ons, which, we're going to have in there some unreleased artwork, and there's also original music that we wrote for the campaign. Peter, are you a music guy at all?
I appreciate music. I like to sing in the shower.
What kind of music do you like?
Man, I like a little bit of everything. But I mostly have rock roots.
Okay. This we wrote a little soundtrack for this. It's 4 songs, and it is like a sort of like a cinematic metal soundtrack. It's definitely highly recommended if you get a chance to check it out.
Yeah, definitely.
The $10 level, the neural enhancement, what that does, that's going to give you it's the catch-up edition. It's not just the issue. It's 1 and 2 together. So for anybody that missed the first one, they can do the catch-up. You want a print copy of the book? That is the Proto-Human. That's the wrap cover by David Dion. Boy, that's just a beautiful cover. Those guys did such a good job on it. That's the one with Juan Castro too, Peter.
Right, yep.
The Chronicles of 76, that is the Erwin Arosa variant. He's my other bookmaking partner, is a terrific guy. And if you like the sort of more hand-painted look to your post-apocalyptic world, he's the guy. Then we got the Resurrection variant. This shows the rescue scene from the book. That's by Fakrul Reza Rivai. Boy, he did a heck of a good job there. I love those colors.
Yeah.
The Doomsday Trinity, that's my man Renan Shoddy and Angel Road on colors. These guys have done a terrific job as well. You're going to see their work. They are doing the full issue for Water Wars 3. There's 2 new stories. The first one's already finished. You might have seen some previews on Facebook. And there's a second one that's in production now. I think we're on like the 3rd page maybe. So that'll be ready by, before the end of the year, put it that way. For $40, you can get the whole set.
Excellent.
That's 4 issues. This is great if you like to have the whole, collect all the variants in one shot. Also, if you want to get a pin, we are doing pins on this one. That's the Citizen 0313 pin designed by Matthew Moss. And there's even an opportunity to get, this is the Compendium of War, which would be essentially everything I have written there, including the 2 pins. So that's going to give you both volumes of Water Wars 2288 and the issue of the Hunchback of Theological Quadrant 19, which that's a very well-received book. We didn't talk about the Hunchback too much, but the first story in that one, it's one of these wordless stories. You know, he's a mechanical caretaker at a church, and he finds something surprising. And essentially the whole story has no words in it, which they're always fun to write, you know. People seem to like that one.
And that's digitally painted, right? Yeah, it's beautiful artwork.
Yeah, and if you like that, we have our new one is coming out. It'll be, well, as soon as I finish this Kickstarter, the other issue is pretty much done. It's coming right off the burner. $75, lo and behold, this is the one that gives you some posters. We have the covers of the books themselves available as a poster. Plus, we got a new one there. The one you see right in front, that's an Erwin Arosa print too. The Rise of the New Federalists. That's going to turn up in the next book. Tells a little bit more about the dystopian government and how they got that way. The Shattered Future, that is one we are having, you know, some of these tiers that we're now doing have the draw-in option, and that's been kind of popular. So if you want to be drawn into the Water Wars, custom commission by David Dion, that one will get you there in the 180 range. The 200 Beyond the Wasteland, what I'm doing there is I am doing Zoom calls with comic creators. One of the things that I have started doing lately is sort of coaching people on how to make comics. It's one of the things that I have a little bit of experience with. And I also, at this point, you know, Peter, you're going to obviously recognize this. There's a lot of people out there that talk and talk and talk about their books, and then the book never comes out.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not sure what causes that, but I will tell you, if you pair up with me with your script, your book's coming out.
Nice.
You know, we're one of those people, I think you and I chatted about this. Good is, or how do they say it? Finished is better than perfect.
Right. Right.
You know what I mean? So, well, it's got to be perfect. I got to go back and, oh, no, man. Your book's coming out, buddy. So here it comes.
Yep. Yep.
And the last one, I Want You. This is to be drawn into the Water Wars universe as a speaking character with lines. And this includes David Dion as the artist. Or also, now that we've unlocked the stretch goal, it's Erwin Arosa will also do one. You could be drawn into what we call the Codex, which is the history of the Water Wars. And the choices are all terrific for this. So people who want to see their visage in print are going to really enjoy this one. I think we sold 1 or 2 of these already.
Right. Cool.
So yeah, the bonus levels are all pretty good. And then we show you some of the pages there. And I'm real proud of the pages. And Peter, I'll tell you why. Something that David has done very well, and this whole team has done very well. You know, you always want to create a book that is visually interesting. And what I mean by that is in the comic world, you know, you don't need to, you want to avoid talking heads, right? We work in a visual medium. What can we do to make this more interesting? So you notice we've got some kind of inventive colors and camera angles, and just in all, the book is going to be very visually interesting. That's some cool stuff there.
Yeah.
There's a closer look at some of those covers. I saw, did Landon have a question there? I was talking over it.
No, I mean, I wanted you to finish out, then we'll get into the comments. Chat.
Now, in this case, we're going to take a look at some of the covers. That wrap poster, that's available on both books, by the way. There's a wrap for Water Wars 1 and for Water Wars 2. One takes place, one is called The Escape from D.C. If you look on this one, you can see the Washington Monument in the background. And the other one is St. Louis. The premise of the book is, after this cataclysmic event, the main character is trying to find her brother, and she's traveling along what used to be Route 66. So it is an American-based story. And it'll go through some, shattered American scenarios.
Yeah. I'm just going to say I greatly appreciate you naming one of your characters after me, which is the the Dragonfly.
Oh, yeah. Sure, yeah. He's actually an acronym. Because when he was Petey, he was Personal Threat Assessment Device. PTAD. So, yeah, actually, Peter, he's named after you.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun with this book, man. Okay, let's see. So scrolling down, giving you an idea of some of the colors. This is Daniel Da Silva Rodriguez on colors, and man, he really brought it. Just the whole color scheme is very inventive and very fiery, very very brilliant. One thing that's kind of cool, you'll notice the design of the Kickstarter is very comprehensive, and it very much fits the theme of the books that we're trying to do. This is, I want to give a quick shout out here to Matthias Zanetti, the letterer, designer, and just all around my best friend. He just does so much for these books, and it would be a disservice if I did not mention it here. So I'm just really happy with the way we did this. This is going to show you some of the stretch goals that are unlocked. We unlocked the sound. That is the 4-song EP I was telling you about. Hope you get a chance to check that. I'll send some of that over to you. It's pretty cool music too, by the way. It's not just like a sample or something I drummed up. I actually we made the themes, and then I got together with a professional composer, and it's a real composition. When you hear it, you're going to go, "Oh, they really did make songs." Okay. We also got a reveal the cast. That is the trading cards that are coming with the cast of Citizen 0313. We just hit this one last night, which is Unlock the Book. That's going to have some sketch art. This is going to have the character designs and also some unseen artwork by Irwin. That is the Water Wars Codex. It's essentially a preview of the next book is going to be in there too.
Nice.
There is one more thing coming. And it looks pretty good that we'll probably hit this. Expand the Universe is it's a tactical map of the locations of the Water Wars. And it's going to be really neat. It has the locations of the battles and the borders and where the robot uprising took place. It's kind of neat. So I think customers will like that.
It helps to visualize, like, when you're reading a story, like, you know, and my experience is, like, I first saw that with Lord of the Rings, where they had the map, and as you're reading the story, it's like, oh, okay, they're north of them, and whatever, you know, it's like you could picture it a little better.
It was very much like that. In fact, when I sent the instructions to his name is Luis Santamarina. He's our logo designer and just super creative guy himself. He's a writer, editor, artist, the whole bit. But he's the map maker as well. And I said, hey, man, this is going to be something sort of like Lord of the Rings. He's like, I'm on it. So that was the initial instructions, like a Lord of the Rings map for Water Wars.
Yeah. And you'll realize this, like, that goes out to anybody who pledges to the book, that, you know, like, it's the United States, but it's totally different than what it is today. You know,
right, yeah, and everything's broken and ruined. It's the post-apocalyptic part is pretty much on point. There is a second segment that's coming up, which I'll just tell you this. You might have some interest. It's already written, which is we do have the next chapter is the apocalypse. What happened in Asia? It's called The Shadow of the Red Goddess, and it's going to be really cool. And it's basically, it's not too different than what we have here in the beginning of these first couple of chapters, but nobody ever writes about what happens in Asia during the apocalypse. So we're going to do that.
Cool. Appreciate that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pretty neat. It's got the government instills this false religion and gets everybody to follow this fake deity because they're trying to control the population. It's a pretty neat story. Okay, and as we scroll down to the end here.
So I just want to,
that's pretty much the end.
People stuff.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into these comments for a little bit. Landon has been writing away madly. It seems like these days indie publishers expect you to do all your own promotion anyways. Does anyone else have that same experience? You know what? I mean, that's true, but it was also true back in the 90s when I first got into comics, that, you know, like, unless you're doing a top tier book, even from all over DC, they're not promoting it as much. So it's up to the creators behind the book to promote it. You know, which when I was working at Aquaman, most people know me as the inker on Aquaman over Cal Fury. I went to conventions and comic book stores, and, you know, I always made a point to say, hey, it's like I'm working on this book, if they had any interest in me doing a signing or appearance or whatever, it's like, and now, like that's part of the mission statement of us independent creators, that we have to just keep promoting our book. And it's the only way to get the word out.
That is definitely the case these days. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I was handing off to you.
Yeah, I totally agree with what you said. And, it ties into what we said earlier, that, the Kickstarter experience is, you would think it would be, let me think of the right way to put this. You want it to be 80% creating a great product for the end consumer and 20% marketing that great product to the consumer. But what happens, or at least in my case, because I'm a little new at this, it very quickly becomes, maybe 40 or 50% making a great product. And then the other half of your time, you're thinking, how am I going to market this? And how am I going to get on YouTube channels? It's all this other stuff, right? So, I have to kind of try and streamline that, because I'll give you for instance, when we were talking about making this hat design, I said, man, I'm getting rid of this hat design. And I sat right down and I wrote the next 3 pages of the new story, because I was genuinely worried. Look, I'm becoming Kickstarter making guy. I'm supposed to be writer guy. I'm supposed to be the creator. And, the things have to keep coming out, right? You get a certain momentum. People start to read your books and they say, hey, well, I read the first 2. Where's the third one? Oh, it'll be out a year and a half from now. You're going to lose your momentum.
No, absolutely. So yeah, it's definitely, we have to promote ourselves, but it's a pleasure to,
Oh yeah. I enjoy it.
It's like, I'm not going to promote myself to like people that have no interest in what I'm doing. I'm promoting to people who like-minded individuals out there who read comics and like what I like, and But
Sergio. Yeah, I see him making a comment there. Sergio, thanks for saying that. We are making a big push toward the digital. And I will mention 2 things, which for our digital customers, who are very important to us, that there are going to be some special things for the digital folks. The first thing, as I mentioned earlier, there's 4 original songs that are available as free downloads as MP3s. And you can listen to the music. And the music is an accompaniment to the stories and characters of the Water Wars. Like, the idea is you could listen to it, they're instrumentals, and you could listen to it while you're reading, and people have told me they think it really fits. So I'd love to hear what you think of that. And the second thing is, and this is not necessarily a new thing, but it is something that I'm doing now. I am partnered up with some of my creator friends. We call it the Digital Pantheon. And basically it means if you buy a copy of my book, you're going to get a free digital copy of their book. So there's 2 so far. There's going to be several more before the end. But if you buy a digital copy, or any copy really, of Water Wars, you get a free copy of Big Jack #1 from Peter Welmerink, great writer and a great friend of mine.
Yep.
And I also have, he's a hell of a great guy, isn't he?
Yep.
Before I get too far off track, I'll just tell you, he and I are collaborating. He has designed a character, and the story's written. He's got a character we're going to feature in the Water Wars universe.
Oh, cool.
It's pretty neat. So Peter and I are going to work together. Yeah. And then the second free thing that you get, the first one is Peter's book, Big Jack #1. And then the second one is a book called Camino Real. That's by, again, my friend Matias Zanetti. It's an Argentinian comic. It is based on a tarot card reading. It's in an unusual format. Yeah, it's in a horizontal format book. It is just fascinating. And it is unlike any other book you ever read. It's a different size. It's a different shape. It's different artwork. It's really unusual subject matter. And I tell you, I chose it. Obviously, the first book, Big Jack, ties into the post-apocalyptic world. The second book, Camino Real, is just, you feel the talent rolling off of it when you look at this thing. And I said, I want to include this. You know what I mean? And it was, it's so different. I hope you get a chance to check it out, Peter, because it's like, what the heck are those guys doing? It's very surreal and very much. Are you a tarot card fan at all?
I mean, I like the artwork, and I know a little bit about it, but not much.
Well, highly recommended. I'll send one over to you. And it's, I wanted to try and include things that were different. There was something that you wouldn't normally see with the other campaigns. And I'm going to guess we got 10 days left, so I'm probably going to have 2 more, maybe 3 more. Basically, every time I've got a friend who's doing a Kickstarter, we trade digital PDFs and offer them to the consumers. That's kind of a thing awesome. These days. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot more comments. Let's try to breeze through these.
Okay.
So they're talking to each other. We made one comment, but getting the word out is pretty challenging. Yeah, you just gotta, whatever Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, whatever sites you're on, is millions more. You just gotta promote, promote, talk,
yep.
Tell people about it. Here we go. And Lennon, yeah, but if it was easy, would it be worth it? I think challenge tests us, but it's true. It is challenging. I struggle with trying to juggle too many things because I'm kind of laser focused. Yeah. That's the struggle is doing too many things. Like, because I got my hands on a lot of different things and schedules suffer because of that. So, you gotta just focus on one thing is recommended, but nobody just does one thing. So keep it down to a minimum 2 or 3 projects going on and whatever. And that's probably a sweet spot.
Yeah. Yep. He's right.
So I can't concentrate unless I shut up everything else. Yep. You're speaking to the choir.
Yeah, and I think that's something that all of us as creatives, we struggle with that, right? It's like, oh man, I got this great new idea. I'm going to sit down and I'm going to start writing this script or drawing this page or coloring this, whatever your craft is. But then right as you're getting ready to start, it dawns on you, oh, wait a minute, I didn't finish that other one I started yesterday. So I think we all have that disease a little bit.
Yeah. That focus is good for getting stuff done. Yep, definitely.
Thank you, Landon.
Wish you success on your crowdfunding goals. Good luck, guys.
I appreciate that very much, sir.
Yeah. Here's a question. Do you prefer detailed panel-by-panel scripts, or do you like more of an outline with a story goal for each page? What's your take, Tim?
That's a great question. I can answer that. Basically, what I do, I'm a pretty detailed panel-by-panel guy. I make all my own storyboards, and I'm very specific about what the layout of the page will be. That said, at the top of each page, when I make my script, I put a beat, and it'll say the synopsis, something like, basically, he's falling down the stairs, and he lands on. So there's a synopsis at the top of each page, because artists tend to think by the page. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah.
So for storytelling, I want to tell them there's 1 or 2 sentences, which this is going to get across what happens on that page. But then as you go through, like say, for example, if it's a 9-panel page, it's very specific what happens in each panel. And sometimes I'll even kind of draw it a little bit. When I say draw, like with stick figures or I have even occasionally, don't tell anybody this, but I sometimes will take the photograph of me posed a certain way. And it's like sort of like this,
Right. No, I mean, that's a smart thing to do. For me, because I come into comics from an art perspective. I was blown away by the art in comics and fell in love with comics because of the art. So as a writer doing comics, I really keep it to a minimum. I go with a plot. And I don't want to say it the Marvel way, because that's like old fashioned at this point. It's just my standard way. And I find that working with other pencilers, because I've done some so far. I'll get more involved, once I get a couple of books out. But artists require more more script than I like for myself. So keeping that in mind, I do want to cater artist by artist. So I'll find their sweet spot and match it with what I do. So a full script is something I find that artists crave. Because then they could pick and choose. Like if their artistic vision looks differently, they'll work it out.
Yeah, and I would say this too is when you get your, typically they're going to send you a layout and you're going to review the layout before they go to any kind of render, right? Well, when you get the layout, if it's something different that was in the script but it looks cool, man, let the guy run with it, because at the end of the day, it's the artist. What's a good way to say this? The writer is writing the story, but the artist is in charge of the impact that panel is going to deliver. So if he says, well, I think it'd be more powerful here if her back was to the camera, I always say the same thing. Hear him out. Let me hear your idea, because it is a visual format. Like I was saying, at the end of the day, these are visual experiences. You can be the best written script in the world, and if the visuals don't pop, no one's going to read your book.
Yeah. You don't want to write like a super tight script like Alan Moore and then have the artist butcher it and just I'm not doing all this. I'm not putting 18 panels on a page. Screw that.
Yeah, and it's easy to say, well, hey, Alan Moore does it this way, but look, there's only one Alan Moore. I mean, that's just not the way to do it. I've often felt, in some cases, I this is going to make you laugh. I sometimes see the artwork and I'll dial the dialogue back because I don't want to cover up the artwork.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's all part of the process as far as I see it too. That if there's room, then maybe I could fit more script in, but if there's not, then
something's coming out.
Cut some out. Yeah.
Yeah.
Welcome, Crimson Owl Comics, Ronnie. Good to see you. Then Landon says, do you think it's pretty common for people that like comics to also do music as well? That's the way I am. I think it's just part of the magical world of creativity. It all goes together in a way. Absolutely. Like there's so many people in comics that also do music. Yeah. I'm not so musically inclined, but I definitely appreciate all my fellow peers that do, like they'll throw up a music video and I'll be like, what? I didn't know he did music.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's cool.
I totally do. I do agree with that because, I was a musician for years before I tried writing, and it was one of those things where the two businesses are even a little bit similar in that you got to network and you got to have the right team and all that kind of thing.
Yeah. I didn't know what you were referring to, your other comments. I'm Oi that mad. I'm not that mad. I don't know. Anyway, awesome advice, Vito. Thank you.
Yeah.
I try. If the visuals don't matter, then you can just write a book. Without pitches, comics are meant to be synthesis of visuals and storytelling. Absolutely.
Yeah, totally agree.
So, thanks for everybody who showed up. Thanks for everybody who commented. I'll mention now, throw this video a like, share it with your friends if you liked what we talked about today. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Become a patron to really promote everything I do. Not promote, support. You know what I mean. But so I'll let you call the shots, Tim. Any more thoughts or just an outgoing statement?
Well, I want to say thanks first to Peter for having me on. This is a terrific time. I'm really grateful that people are starting to notice these books, and I'm always willing to talk about them. Or if anybody wants more information, feel free to hit my Facebook page. I'm on the Socket page, and also I'm Holden McCourt, which is one of the characters. I also will give out any kind of free samples if anybody would like to see some art or hear some of the music. I'd love to turn you guys onto it. I'll put some of this on my page later today. And man, I just want to say thanks so much for the warm reception we're getting from this book. And it really means a lot to me. And we can't wait to release it to you guys.
Excellent. Excellent. Yeah. Well, I think you're going places, sir.
Thanks, Peter. I appreciate it. Hey, I hope I can be on your show again, man. This is definitely one of the better ones.
Oh, yeah. Oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, I'm casual. I'm not always totally informed, and it's it is what it is. It's my show.
Questions are good. The questions are good.
Thanks. All right, everybody. So yeah, have a great day, great week, and I'll be back in a couple of days. Do a solo show, and like I said, I have some guests. One of them was here earlier. Wink, wink. But you'll have to wait to see who's next. So yeah, thank you everybody for coming and checking out Tim and his work. And